Welcome to the Slop Farm. Enjoy the video.
You're aiming to change the apparent f-stop, not a physical iris. First, open camera and choose portrait mode for depth control or launch a manual app like Halide. Once done, set Pro RAW if you want maximum latitude for edits. This preserves data for later depth and blur adjustments. Make sure live or depth capture is enabled in settings so the phone records depth maps. Also prepare by positioning the subject at a moderate distance. This affects how shallow or deep your background blur will read. Now control the look. In portrait mode, tap F or the depth control slider and drag to increase or decrease blur. Lower values simulate wider apertures. If you're in a manual app, switch to portrait/depth and adjust the virtual aperture or blur parameter. These apps map settings to the depth map for realistic results. Also vary focal length, telephoto versus wide, and move the subject relative to the background. These physical factors change perceived depth of field, so combine them with software sliders for best results. Finish in Photos or your editing app. Open the shot, tap Edit, then use Depth or the Portrait Blur slider to fine-tune the f-stop effect. Export when satisfied. If you see weird edges or haloing, reduce the blur slider or retake with more distance between subject and background. Computational depth maps struggle with overlap. If exposure or real optical changes are required, use an external lens or ND filter attachment to influence actual light and motion. Then repeat the depth adjustments for the final look.
Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing if we helped you today.